Ross and Steve.
You have at least a quorum.
Okay.
May I push the go live button?
Yeah, I think we better get started. Just we have a lot to cover today. So terrific. We've got most everybody here. So if everyone else could put their screens on mute so we don't have any feedback, that'd be great. Okay, except for you, Laura, let me know when we're starting our meeting.
We can start.
Okay, terrific. Welcome to the February 24th, 2022 meeting of the Arts and Culture Commission. This meeting is being held electronically to ensure the safety of all residents and staff. All members of the commission and staff are participating from homes and offices. For members of the commission, please remember to mute your microphone when you're not talking and raise your hand if you want to speak. We will have roll calls for each motion this evening, as well as for our adjournment. I will ask our staff member, Laura Fulton, to call roll after each motion. We'll repeat the motion for the record before we vote, and we'll also repeat who made the motion and who seconded. Before we begin, a couple things to cover for those listening in or watching online. The public has two ways to view the meeting tonight. They can watch the live stream on the city's YouTube channel or listen via phone using the WebEx call-in. There is no community comment during the meeting tonight. The city is committed to hearing and receiving your input on matters. The public can send in comments to the commission through the commission correspondence web form on our website. The recording of the meeting will also be available to watch on the city's website tomorrow. Go to the Watch a Meeting link under the I Want To tab on the homepage. Thanks in advance for your patience as we work to conduct this meeting online. We hope there will be no issues, but be assured that we will do our best to continue the meeting as best we can if there are any glitches. Thanks to everyone for tuning in tonight, for your interest in the Arts and Culture Commission and our work in the city. It is now 4:32. I'd like to call the Arts and Culture Commission meeting to order. Laura, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Amlaw?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Present.
Commissioner Westland?
Here.
Commissioner Fram?
Here.
Commissioner Stemler? Commissioner Chandler?
Here.
Commissioner Rubin? Commissioner Suko? Student Commissioner Anand?
Here.
Student Commissioner Shen?
Here.
Chair Sorensen?
Here. Thank you so much, Laura. Next, we're going to approve our meeting agenda. Everyone should have received an agenda. There was an updated version which scratches the community comment for our online meeting. Otherwise, may I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Westland. Second.
Seconded.
Thank you, Kathy Amlaw. Okay, Laura, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Amlaw? Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Westland?
Aye.
Commissioner Fram?
Aye.
Commissioner Stemler?
Aye.
Commissioner Chandler? Oh,
Aye.
Commissioner and Chair Sorensen?
Aye. Next, item number 4, the approval of the meeting minutes. Everyone should have received the minutes from our last meeting, January 27th. Do you have any changes to the meeting minutes after looking them over? And just please speak up if I can't see your hand. Let's see. If anybody has any changes to the meeting minutes? Otherwise, I don't see any hands. Can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Susan Chandler. Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you so much, Alyssa Fram. Laura, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Amlaw?
Present.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Westland?
Aye.
Commissioner Fram,
Aye.
Commissioner Stemler,
Aye.
Commissioner Chandler,
Aye.
Chair Sorensen.
Aye. Terrific. Thank you so much. So we have a full agenda tonight. We're obviously skipping item 5 and on to number 6, which is our reports recommendations, reviewing our 2022 work plan. So we're going to kind of go through these as quickly and as efficiently as we can. If everyone could just kind of refer to their work plan as we go through these initiatives. We're also going to try tonight, if we can, to approximate a completion date for some of these. And I realize that some of them are a work in progress and we might need to amend the completion dates. But for initiative 1, I'm going to go ahead, of course, Brian, Alyssa, and I have, and Ria is also a part of this initiative. We have had an online meeting, and I had a meeting that I reported back to everybody about, which is making some amendments to this initiative based on feedback from the Edina Public School Superintendent and Director of Student Services, Jeff Jorgensen. So this is a collaboration between our commission and the Edina Public Schools. And they would like to, they love this initiative. They're very excited to work together on something and really have an integrated effort. They would, however, like to see this initiative change the direction from, they want to keep the healing aspect of the project, but rename it so that mandala is not sort of front and center, but instead a new healing art project that would be put into the school district and shared with the community. They've also asked us, because of the pressure and time constraints of this project, because many of their teachers are sort of feeling a little crushed right now with the amount of work on them and the year that it's been, the pandemic. They also talked about with the digital mapping process, their thoughts were, if this is a school initiative, an arts and culture initiative for students, that would be best shown at night when it's dark earlier. So for example, in October, when we have another opportunity for mental health awareness. So bumping this to October so that it's dark earlier. We have another moment with mental health awareness. We actually then will not lose some of the media coverage that we were already gaining momentum on. It will all get sort of pushed to October, and we'll roll this out kind of in a more collaborative, thoughtful sort of process that gives us more time to really, as Brian sort of mentioned, really track this initiative and learn from it and be able to really use it as an example of a true like in-person public art initiative. So there's some big updates. You know, I'm kind of just glossing over things, but we're expecting to have a big report back to us from the Edina School District, from the collaborators on their end who took our initiative and asked to just make a few changes to it. And so we're expecting that. We're supposed to get it, I think, sometime this week. So I'm guessing either tomorrow or early next week. And we'll share those updates, incorporate those into our work plan. And I think have something that, you know, they're very excited to help really showcase this and bring it to the school district. They talked about even the digital mapping piece of this. While there's interest in still doing something with Centennial Lakes Park, they've also talked about, wouldn't it be great to use Coleman Stadium so that you have an incredible way to view the digital mapping into the field from that vantage point. So there were a lot of really big ideas that came to the table. And again, it's the pandemic. It's a matter of, this was the first opportunity they really had to focus on it and what exactly they wanted to do with us. So it's morphed from where we started. And it's, I think, just going to be a more impactful effort with their engagement, true engagement and collaboration on this. So so that's a big change. I don't know, does anyone have any questions at this point? We're sort of, again, waiting for next steps from the superintendent and director of student services as they slightly tweak this project. I'll just be completely open as well that the mandala concept, they loved everything about it. Obviously, it was a public school teacher that sort of developed the curriculum around it. But they are in a time when there's tremendous pressure on them and a little bit of a hostile environment sometimes. And their concern was that the mandala might be perceived as too spiritual, or they might run into some issues for that. So that's why this is kind of back to the drawing board. It was a really good session. Like I said, they just kind of zeroed in on it for a good hour and a half, 2-hour meeting, and are planning to come back with some recommendations and next steps. We'll also plan to roll this out to the community through a variety of different opportunities, from the art fair to Fall into the Arts to the summer concert series. So we feel like there will be a lot of opportunity for real community engagement, as well as the cooperation of the Edina Public School District to share this with the entire K through 12 school community. So, does anyone have any questions? Okay. All right.
I love the idea of it going out to all kids, K through 12. That's exciting, not just high school.
Yep.
So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, terrific. We'll move on. I know we've got a lot to cover. Initiative 2, this is the research and make a recommendation for a microgrant process for community-driven arts and culture. Is Steve Sukow still on our call? Did he join our call?
Chair Sorensen, I don't believe Commissioner Suko is on the call yet, but just for the record, Commissioner Rubin has joined.
Oh, excellent. Welcome, Russ.
I actually am going to take a pause.
Using Russ's access.
We put Sarah Peterson on as Russ because he.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Okay.
Sarah, I'm wondering if you could change your name.
That solved an issue. So Commissioner Rubin is not with us tonight for the official record. So.
Okay. So we'll move on to initiative 2. I don't know, Susan Chandler, would you like to help me just make a quick update here? And Kathy Amlov, the 3 of us with Steve Sukow had a terrific call with the executive director of the Edina Community Foundation, Dick Crockett, a couple weeks ago, where we began brainstorming about how we might work together on a microgrant process, and to hear sort of how the Community Foundation is already engaging in that kind of work. So I don't know, Susan, if Steve has a terrific, he sort of was going to report on this today because he drew up some notes from our meeting, but if anyone else, Kathy or Susan, want to offer anything else about that meeting. But the process is underway, and Susan has also created a terrific template for us to start collecting data about how other cities are implementing a microgrant process for encouraging more art in communities. So I don't know, do you?
I'll just say really briefly that we had a good hour-long conversation with Dick Crockett at the Community Foundation, and it is unfortunate Steve isn't here because he really did some great summary. But my biggest takeaway is that we should not overlook the possibility of collaborating with them, because they have some great processes in hand and staff. And I think that as we move ahead, if we choose to move ahead with the concept of micro grants, both of those things would be very helpful to us, recognizing that this would be city funds, slightly different from private funds that they typically are involved with. And so we would need to take that into account within the process. But it would be, I think, a lot easier to take advantage of some of Dick's experience, as long as we could still maintain our own autonomy.
Terrific, well said. Kathy Amlod, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say how good it was to hear Dick talk about the foundation and how available it is to us. Perry, I have a question for you, though. As we were talking about our funds, do we have any idea of how many dollars we have to spend on these micrograms Are we talking about $10,000 a year? Are we talking $50,000 a year? Kind of makes a difference in terms of, if we're projecting micro grants to individuals or corporations, or how big a grants we give out. So Perry, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Amlaw. Just to make sure we are talking about the same thing, is the initiative is to deliver a report to the Edina City Council on what you want your process to be. So at this point, you've not allocated funding for this process at all. Part of that report, I would imagine you'd want to identify with a source of funding, right? Either is that a public-private partnership? Is it all public? Where are you thinking you're going with that? There are, as we've reported twice, I think, over the last several months on the status of the Public Art Fund. I know that question will go up, so I can give you an update on that, as well as the city's Public Art Fund, which, as you know, you've widened the definition of that based on your definition of public art. So that, if you recall, as you ended the 2021 budget season, right? So we'll have a comprehensive annual financial report that will detail the exact funding. It's part of the city's audit process that usually comes out in April or so. But you ended 2021 with around $64,395 in the Public Art Fund. Now that's all of it, right? That's the entire fund. That's not what you'd say that's going to be all for microgrants, or that's all for this, but that's the entire fund that would be available. So depending on the scope and size of this program, obviously that's a future discussion about how big those grants get.
Great. Kathy, did that answer your question? More or less?
Thank you, Perry. That answered my question.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Does anyone have any more?
Rebecca,
Yes.
I'll just say one more thing, which is that this was sort of one data point to talk to Dick Crockett, but I think we have other research and next steps to follow up on that. So this, our charge is to research and recommend something. So this was helpful to get some background. I don't completely understand everything that happens at the Community Foundation yet, despite our great conversation with Dick. There's still just, it seems like there are a lot of moving parts there. So at any rate, I think that we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. I think we need to, do some other considerations. So this was a good first step in our process to do some research.
I just had a question too on this one, since we're trying to start putting down target completion dates. I know that we're charged right now with, as Susan just said, researching and making a recommendation. So I see that in our parking lot, we have implement microgrant process for community-driven arts and culture if recommendation is approved by council. So we might want to factor that into how quickly we might want to come up with a report and a recommendation, so that maybe before 2022 is over, we can present something that council can look at and potentially have a process sort of ready to go. Am I reading that right? That if we put a deadline, like, I don't know, sometime like September, or, a deadline where we can really put together a nice report, but then we might also then be able to present something to council if we were to try to implement something this year, if they voted on it and approved it. Perry, could you just let me know, like,
yes,
as we
Chair Sorensen, I believe when the work plan was reviewed, the council did split this for that purpose. They want to see what your plan is. They want to approve your plan, and then they would charge you with implementing it. So it's all about scope and load of obviously your work, but also a touch point with them is they want to see what this process would look like before they would approve it.
Okay. All right. So maybe this initiative will.
Part B.
Yeah, part A, part B. So we'll probably need to spend a little more time talking about what kind of timeline we think we can accomplish this first phase in, and then move on to plan B. Or part B. Does that sound good, Kathy and Susan, for now? We'll regroup and talk about how much time we think we might need before we assign a deadline for this first phase? Okay. Did that, all right, we'll go with that. So we'll huddle about a completion date.
I saw some virtual head nods, Chair. So.
Good, I couldn't see. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, now we'll go on to Initiative 4, and I know we have Ria on this call and Susan Johnson. Susan, I'm going to have you share with the folks about what we learned recently. You've done a ton of legwork. Ria has also been a part of discussions with Project Earth at Edina High School. They are working on this initiative with us. So Susie, will you share a little bit more about this initiative and what you've learned so far?
Sure, I'll go ahead with that. Thank you. I contacted a person from St. Louis Park that had, let's see if I can get my, there. Oh, maybe you can see me. St. Louis Park that worked with the economic and community development. They oversee the public art. This person was not involved in the project from its onset, but had some really great information about how to go forward with it. They had great success. She thought it has really engaged the community. So I got some great tips from her, and I'll kind of share those with you as we go along. But in our meeting, we did talk with the 2 student representatives that were there, Lindsay and Shelby. And because the club is really going to embrace the, they're going to try and, get all the poems or the slogans or whatever is going to be sandblasted into the sidewalks. They're going to be in charge of that. But what we did find out was, or what I found out was that shorter poem lines are better for sandblasting. St. Louis Park did about 13 poems, and they had a budget of about 10,000, and they spent about 85 of it for those poems. I reached out also to the company that they told me had done the sandblasting, and it's called Stone and Steel Design in St. Louis Park. And I had a conversation with Brian, who runs the company, and he said he was really easy to talk to. Sounds like he'd be really easy to work with, and he can do just about anything we want to do. Of course, there's a price on everything, but he said they do color etching. After they've sandblasted, they do the stenciling, and just, depending on how smooth the surface is, the better the result. And we also had Tom and Perry, I forget his last name, from the city that was with the park division, right? Giving us some input on different areas. The students are voting on the parks. They're kind of deciding what the most important areas are that they would like to see some of these slogans etched at. And we came up with a nice list with Utley, Centennial, Roslyn, and I forget all of them. I don't have the whole list here jotted down, but we did set a tentative date for an unveiling on the Saturday after Earth Day, which is the 23rd of April. At maybe 10 in the morning at Roslyn Park to do an unveiling. I was told that because of the threat of frost still in the ground, and that is until the middle of May, there could be no actual etching because the surface has to be 100% dry, or it will cause a seepage, or it'll kind of destroy it after it's been sandblasted. That's what Brian told me. So we talked a little bit, you had mentioned, Rebecca, about having chalk art to kind of do it for the unveiling, and that might be a good thing to do. The other thing we talked about is when the students decided on the slogans, 8 or 10, maybe we could do some kind of, digital or, signage or something like that for people to view them, because they're not going to be available. There's probably a 3-month window that the company would use to do the actual installation on the sidewalks. And if we wanted color added, we could. That just increases the budget about 5%, but it also involves maintenance. St. Louis Park did not do color. They just did a deeper etching. Perry had mentioned that he was a little concerned that we make sure that it is actually artistic, so that we don't have anyone in the community thinking we're just, you know, putting slogans in sidewalks. It has to be community art. They can use pretty much any font we want to use. They can also do any image. They could take a picture of our committee and etch it into stone if we wanted. He said they are very well versed in doing any kind of application like that. So it was good. Excuse me. I have his contact information, and he's out of town now for the next few days, but he's, you know, really excited to work with us, and, you know, just has a really, you know, forge right ahead spirit. So whatever we want, he said, I know I can do it for you. So I guess it kind of comes down to just touching base with the students and make sure they're moving ahead. So we know the kind of lines. St. Louis Park mentioned they thought the less lines, they had a couple poems. One was 11 lines, one was 13, and they thought that didn't work as well. He disagreed when I mentioned that. He said, I can, you know, I can do the whole block if you want it in letters. He, you know, said whatever you come up with is going to be fine. He's willing to get it in the stone. And he does put a personal service agreement together. So if it does not work out or pieces of it fall away, they do come back and touch it up. So just, yeah, it sounded, you know, like a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for all of your research and investigating and opening up these doors to sort of making this happen. And we're really excited. Susie, wouldn't you say these Project Earth students, and Ria, I know you can speak to this too, are super excited about this initiative. They have over 10 students at the high school that are working on a process to collect the very best climate change action slogans or poetry. They've also put together, based on our initiative and what was approved by council, they have the language for the initiative, and they're putting together a Google Doc so that there's a process for within Edina High School students to participate and submit some slogan ideas that our commission, all of us that are involved with this initiative, would work with their advisor on selecting, like Susie said, the top, let's say 8 to 10 of these slogans, depending on how many parks we decide we want to do this at. But I think one of the things too that's important for us to recognize is that, so I was thinking that this all just happens on Earth Day and that they're all revealed. This is really great information. First of all, we live in Minnesota, and the reality is there could be snow on the ground on Earth Day. And that, you know, we have to come up with, we want to have an unveiling and a sort of way of announcing that this is happening. And that's what we're looking at on the day after Earth Day, April 23rd, with a fun event that we'll start to build out with Project Earth at 10 in the morning at Roslyn, as Susie mentioned. But then we are going to sort of start looking at, again, selecting the parks that will receive these etchings, and that will be ongoing. As you said, Susie, it doesn't just kind of all magically happen at once, that there's a timeline and a process, and it will be that we may even create like a map of the different parks in Edina that people could follow along with, or visit a site on the city website where they could, you know, find out where all the etchings are and go and explore them. And again, it's a way to celebrate the parks in Edina, be more mindful about climate change. It's on everyone's top of mind. And again, these student leaders, this is something that they're really being recognized by the superintendent in our community for the good work they're doing in activism and keeping our community on the forefront of climate change. So it's exciting to partner with them on this. And one of the things we want to talk to you all about now is that to go forward and hire this company, Susie researched based on what St. Louis Park, they again recommended this company. And again, this has also been done in St. Paul. We're looking at, just as we've done with other initiatives, setting aside or dedicating some funding to this project so that when we are ready to go, we don't have to wait to meet again in another month. We can start signing contracts, not us, but the city with this company. and get the ball rolling, because we are, like we said, trying to begin the process in April, which is right around the corner. So we're hoping that you agree with us that this is worth doing, that, you know, there's a lot of momentum behind this, a lot of very excited students to see this in action. We're certainly going to look at the company Susie recommended. We're also trying to be creative to see, I just got a tip about the Edina High School has a fab lab that does the pavers. They etch into the Edina High School walkway, see if there's a possibility of something at the high school that those the Fab Lab could do as another site. So it's not just, I think in our meeting, we talked about the parks. We also talked about at some of the school campuses, having some of these etchings, and then maybe even at 50th and France. So it's like spread out throughout the community. But we will need some seed money to get things rolling and to have a budget for this project. And so this is where we look to the commission. We recommend, I think, Susie, in your research, we know from St. Louis Park, they allotted $10,000 to their initiative and spent $8,500. Is that what you said?
Yes, yeah.
Around that. So we'd like to earmark $10,000 for this project as well, knowing that this will most likely roll out sometime over the next couple of months through the end of the summer into September. The sandblasting will kind of go on as soon as the conditions are ripe, and that could be, you know, we don't know, June, July. We have to sort of get on their schedule and see when we can get this all implemented. But I'm wondering if folks have questions about that. We just heard from Perry that we have funding for a number of initiatives, but this would take about $10,000 of that budget towards this project.
Chair Sorensen, can I just add a couple of pieces of information? Just so commission members, and I know Susan Johnson did a great recap of that. Some of the parks we were looking at doing this at, and Tom Swenson, he's our Assistant Director of Parks and Natural Resources. He's looking at, you know, where's the most appropriate location within these parks, you know, that could this be done. But the list that he's going to research is consists of Centennial Lakes Park, Roslyn Park, Bredesen Park, Utley Park, Arneson Acres, Lewis Park, and Pamela Park. So those were the park locations that he's going to investigate and look into. You had also mentioned the school sites. You also mentioned some private locations. I just wanted to clarify, 50 in France, there's a lot of pavers down there, right? So I don't know how, just as a reminder, I don't know how successful this would be on pavers. That's a different substrate that we would have to work through. So just to be cautious about your expectations around 50th, but that may lead to more of a partnership with someone on a private side to do it within that realm, maybe not on the public realm of 50th and France because of the paver action. So I know the focus was on parks because we can allow you to do that, right? We have that authority. Once you go outside that, it gets a little trickier. So I wanted to mention that list for you as you do that. And just to clarify, as you did mention, this would be city staff entering into a contract with a firm to do this based on use of the public art fund dollars, which would be a recommendation, kind of like you've done in the past for expending funds on marketing, et cetera, for the event. So just wanted to add those points if people were thinking about where this could occur. Those are locations that staff is going to look into.
I have a question. How many sites would be available for the $10,000? Do we have any idea how many of those parks could receive something for that amount?
Yeah, that was my question as well. Susie, you said that 8,500 supported how many different I don't like using the word etchings, but what, you know,
Yeah,
poem sites in St. Louis Park. What was the number?
it was about, and this was a couple years back. So, but it was about 13.
So even if it's about 700 or 750 per site.
Per square, you know, and I did ask him that, and he said and he'll do a sliding scale based on volume for us. But he was talking about the size of the letters, and that, you know, has to be taken into account. And some of the poems there in St. Louis Park, they were very, like 11 lines or 13 lines. And we did ask the students, trying to keep ours maybe around, 5 on average. So that should help bring the cost down a little bit, not hugely, but, I was, depending on the stone, I just kind of threw out about $1,000 a square of sidewalk. And he said, well, that would be at the top end. So we just kind of arrived at that number because that is what was used in the past. They did a few more. There's been a little inflation. So that's where we pulled it from.
That's helpful. Thank you. I just would also like to suggest, in addition to the parks, and that's a great list, Perry, would it be possible to include the Edina Library as a site?
It's a good idea. Library would be good.
I know that it's Hennepin County, not City of Edina, but
We could put it on the list. We'd have to work through Hennepin County to see if that's feasible or not.
Yeah.
Great questions and feedback. Does anyone else have any questions or anything else they'd like to add about this initiative? Yep, I don't see any hands. Let's see. Okay.
I would just ask, is there consensus then to move forward with staff to, as soon as Commissioner Johnson can get a proposal for us to work through X locations up to $10,000. And if it exceeds that, we'd come back to the commission. There seemed to be consensus for that. You don't have to vote, but.
Yes, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, I think it's great to work with a company who's done something so similar in the suburb right next door. I think this sounds great.
Okay. Terrific. Any other feedback or comments? Again, thank you, Susie Johnson, for all your research on this, and again, connecting with St. Louis Park to find out best practices for them. And we look forward to, we'll be continuing to join Project Earth, RIA, and Susie and I will continue to join them. They meet every week, which is terrific. So every Thursday morning, we're invited to wake up early, maybe bring them the vegan donuts. That seems to be helping. And begin this kind of dialogue with them. Like I said, they are so eager. Last minute, they joined us at this meeting yesterday. Terrific input and ideas, and already coming up with a process. So it's wonderful too. So the city doesn't have to create anything on the website. It's all being done within the Edina High School. So they're owning that process, and then we work on jurying with our rubric and everything else, kind of the winning slogans. So I guess that's about it for now, but we'll keep you posted. And thank you so much, everybody. It's terrific that we can go forward with this. So thank you, Susie, for all your work on this. And we'll talk about next steps, getting a proposal to Perry and Laura. On to Initiative 5. I know we've got a lot more to cover tonight. Number 5, we are just excited because we're going to have a meeting next week with the 50th in France Business Association. They've now named a new executive director. Her name is Judy Johnson. She's asked for a meeting to talk about entering into another sponsorship of the concert series Performances on the Plaza, as we did last summer. I'm hoping that this commission supports sponsoring this concert series as we did last summer. It is a terrific opportunity. It's a very well-attended concert series. It will again involve emerging talent from Edina High School. So Ria and Tiffany are going to work with us, if this goes forward, on bringing in terrific emerging student talent from the high school in the surrounding communities. It's a fantastic series every Friday evening. I think it goes from 5 to 7 with a headliner and then a student performer kind of at intermission. It's also a terrific sort of venue for us we learned from the virtual gallery. It's very well attended and a terrific way for the Arts and Culture Commission to have a presence, especially promoting this new Initiative 1, having a longer timeline into October. It would be an opportunity for us to promote that initiative at the concert series. So again, 50th in France has just kind of announced that this series is going to happen again, have pulled together most of the seed money to make it happen and are looking for a commitment from our commission again with Edina Liquor of around $5,000. So we don't need to make any decisions about that right now. We're going to have a meeting and talk about a partnership and what that would look like. And we'd have to work with Perry and everybody on the Edina Liquor partnership. But it's a terrific way to advertise our initiatives and have a presence at the event. And I know our student commissioners are really excited to start promoting it to high school students for emerging talent opportunities within the series as well. Does anyone have questions about that yet? It's a little bit early, but that would be for this summer, starting June through August.
So the $5,000 would come from the public art budget?
No. Perry, step in and let us know, but I'm pretty sure.
Just to clarify, we could talk about it here tonight, is last year, the Arts and Culture Commission helped sponsor by bringing additional talent and acts to the event. So it was almost like a sweat equity to bring to that event. You promoted your virtual gallery and other issues there, or not other issues, other events and opportunities there. You brought in youth talent to complement what they had already done. So the Arts and Culture did not have a financial contribution to that event. It was more of you instead of putting your money in, you put your energy into that. Edina Liquor separately sponsored that event, right? Edina Liquor has a store location down there. It was a marketing opportunity to promote Edina Liquor at that event from a marketing and sponsorship aspect. So two different things that the city was involved in. So it's always hard to say who's the city, what's the city event, but they were almost two different actions that worked in parallel to help promote that event down there. So I think what 50th in France Business Association is going to ask is Edina Liquor interested again in sponsoring? Which is different than the commission wanting to spend energy there as well.
Yeah, and like I said, we've been invited once again in terms of sweat equity to help recruit student talent. So, and that would be through our student commissioners if we were to go forward with that again, which it sounds like it's on our work plan. They're very excited to do that. The curator is the same curator as last summer. So, you know, again, we've helped build that series, brought that curator to 50th in France, and have helped sort of push some local talent into that series, including student talent. So definitely gave them some sweat equity. And the sponsorship part, yeah, we'll have to stay tuned on that. So does that answer your question, Brian?
Yeah, well, I guess I was just I was interested to know, like, was this an official sponsorship, or was this kind of, it sounds like this is more of a soft sponsorship in terms of, because I know that last year, you know, that we were mentioned like during the concert, but that in terms of there was no signage or any kind of opportunity for the Arts and Culture Commission to engage with the community.
Oh, that's okay. That part, yes. I mean, we were in all the press releases. So there was a huge marketing effort at the beginning. So we were in probably about 20 stories that went out on the series. So we did benefit from that. And that was language around promoting the virtual gallery. The signage piece of it would be something, again, if we were to talk about this going forward, I agree. I would love to see, especially Initiative 1, take advantage of the engagement opportunities with the public and have signage and have like a table and information about our community art projects. So I think that we could do much more. I do know one thing that's kind of exciting. Last summer, it was up to the curator of the series to promote it. So we were always giving her a script, like, don't forget to thank Edina Liquor, Arts and Culture, you know, and on and on. And this time they actually have a professional marketer who will be making sure that everyone is getting promoted and coming up with signage. And so it'll be a lot more. I think last summer they were just feeling it all out. They didn't have a proper sign. This summer, it's a concerted 50th in France Business Association effort with a big marketing budget behind it. So I expect that there'll be much bigger opportunities for name recognition with a solid kind of team behind it.
Right. So I guess maybe, and I think I brought this up earlier or in a previous meeting, was I guess the terminology around being a sponsor versus just being a supporter, that maybe that, you know, we could help define that in the future as to, like, if a sponsorship, if we're considered a sponsor, what would be involved in getting that title versus being a supporter, you know, being supported by the Arts and Culture Commission or being endorsed by the Arts and Culture Commission. Do you understand? It seems like it could be helpful to kind of figure out what that terminology is and what, how we can communicate with the public as to our role in a certain activity.
And we did say we were a joint sponsor with, I mean, last summer we sort of said in all the press language, and we can look at the press release from last summer, but it was definitely a joint sponsorship with Edina Liquor and the Arts and Culture Commission. So we were sort of on there, we piggybacked on Edina Liquor. So it was worded very clearly, but I understand your point completely, and definitely something we should talk about. So we can have a sidebar conversation about that, I think, and talk about next steps. We're going to have, again, this meeting with Edina 50th in France Business Association on Thursday to learn more about the series and what they're looking for. I do know that they're already $20,000 committed to the concert series through the 50th in France Business Association, and that they're looking to raise another 10,000. So I think they're looking at going back to Edina Liquor for funding and elsewhere. So they're looking for ideas. Okay, so moving on, if anyone has anything else to add to that, but thank you, Brian, for making that point. On to Edina Theater. Russ Rubin is not on this call, but Laura Westland, Russ, and I are having a meeting on March 1st with the Manns, Michelle Mann, of the Mann family, that went into an agreement with the city of Edina and have now signed papers and are official and have put on their social media today that the theater will be open this summer and will be very much the way it was, and talked about it being an art house theater with independent films and be very similar to what we came to love about the cinema in years past. The addition will be that it'll be renovated. They'll have a bar and have actually a new concert venue within the cinema. So that's kind of exciting. So we're excited. Laura, I don't know if you have anything else that I think we're excited to have this conversation on March 1st at 12 over Zoom with Michelle Mann and learn more about what to expect. But there's a terrific, if you look on Edina Theater on social media, they're starting to already populate their sites with exciting updates about what's to come. And they anticipate opening again in June, this June. So that's all. I don't know, Laura, if you have anything else at this point, but we're going to learn more this week. So
no, we'll learn more on Tuesday, but it's really exciting. It sounds like it will be a terrific space. It's great.
Terrific. Okay, now I know we want to dedicate time to 6B, so we've pretty much covered our work plan. The Pottery Forward Facility Report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll jump into that so we can start discussing that. I also want to introduce on the line is our consultant who helped with this enormous effort. She did all the heavy lifting for us, and that is Sarah Peterson. She's on your screen as Russ Rubin, who is not here this evening. So she has a lot of titles and a lot of certifications, and now she has an alias. So wanted to direct you to the brief report and introduction in your packet. You've heard updates from a number of the commissioners that have been invited to this through the initiative work plan process. This is the chance for the full commission to hopefully, you had a little bit of time to review it. It's comprehensive, it is detailed. For the report, I stole a line from Sarah, and that is, it is often too much information and not enough. So as we look forward to that, but in the crux, I think you all know the basic pattern that has occurred here, and that the report kind of initially starts summarizing, and that is there's been an effort and a need for a new or remodeled space initiative, and this has started roughly, in the late 90s and into the early 2000s. Then there's been this process of vision and study. There's been a number of those studies that have occurred, and at the same time that has continued to occur, there's been this absence of investment in the capital improvements of the facility. It's always been, well, don't invest because we're getting a new location, right? That's kind of been a pattern that's been going on. And then in the end, there's been, for a variety of reasons, a lot of those ideas and a lot of those processes just have not come to fruition, whether it be future expansion at the current location, whether it be at the Grandview location with a much larger facility. They just didn't come to fruition. And in the end, the Art Center has kind of been in this limbo, I guess you could say, of not truly representing the need there, not having the ability to go through capital improvements, doesn't have the ability to self-fund its capital improvements, and it's kind of lingered along the way. So we had to take a little bit of a different look at this, as the report indicates, in 2019, when this kind of really started through this process. When we looked at it from not, is it big enough? Do we have enough natural light? Are there enough wheels? We looked at the facility from, is the electrical distribution system safe? What's the status of the roof and the windows? What's up with, why do the kilns keep kicking out? Is the ventilation proper? And that report we got back at that time was pretty sobering. It highlighted a number of deficiencies, not just from a programmatic sense, but from infrastructure, building envelope, safety, and security. So I don't think we need to spend much time on that, but that's kind of the crux of really what's happened down there. So before we kicked off this process, which is on your work plan, we did visit with the city council and kind of got this direction to look pottery forward, right? And kind of that was kind of that discussion piece. We followed their directive, which is to build that pottery asset for Edina and the region, identify that temporary until permanent facility for that asset, continue with a decentralized use of locations for other methods of art in the time being, and then ultimately pursue a potential of a purpose-built facility, maybe within Braemar Park in the future. And that was kind of the direction we got from the council. So that's what kicked off this process. And we brought Sarah on board and we started doing research. Obviously, with anything, as we navigated the last couple of years, there were starts, there were stops, there were interruptions. As we all know, what's occurred through the midst of this pandemic. What we have for you tonight is kind of that ultimate report here on a pottery forward facility, where the center has been, where it could go. Our next step after this evening is to go to the Edina City Council at a work session. That date is March 22nd. The council will review that. For sure, we would love to have the initiative members there at that time to answer any questions that the council may have of commission members that went through this. You know, it's possible we could bring the entire commission. We'll have to navigate that as we return now to, as we'll get to later, from virtual to in person, to bring that forward. So, so Sarah is on the call. I want to make sure she has a chance to introduce herself to all of you, not just the 4 members that she's met through this process, and to correct anything that I've said incorrectly thus far.
Am I there?
Yes, you are.
There we go. There we go. Hi, I just wanted to say hi and thank you so much for your hard work in all of this, and say how excited I am about where this is going, and happy for you guys. And really, I'm just here in case there's some questions that come along that you need my help for.
I know, you know, commissioners may have questions along the way, but would it be beneficial if I just kind of went over some of the recommendations and highlights that staff's taking out of this as we go forward? And that's, I see some head nods, so maybe I'll keep talking, and other staff or Sarah, you can kind of jump in as we go forward. And that's what we found through this process is that a Pottery Forward facility would benefit from having multiple types of kilns. That was a huge attraction for the current center, whether they be soda, gas, and electric, was that not to just focus on what other locations may do, and that's other entities, is just electric. So having the multi-type kilns, the number would have to be dictated by space. Obviously, some of those kilns that are very attractive at the current center are ones that have to be outdoors. So that would be a factor in site location. The other piece was really adhering to the facility guide recommendations for the type of building that we would move into. And those were also eye-opening. We kind of, I think when we first started this long ago and we were looking at properties, it was, boy, this is a beautiful building. How could we move this in here? And then as we got into what some of those site recommendations were, which was, you need floor drains, you need areas that you can hose down walls, you're dealing with dust and mud and clay, you know, you need ventilation over aesthetics is really kind of what it was. And basically it was, you need a really good infrastructure to host this here. So to make sure that those facility recommendations are paramount over the actual location. The other piece we had a lot of conversation in the initiative group was how we would structure our cost recovery ratios. We had a lot of discussion about that, is really focusing on making sure we accept beginner introductory classes, family classes, youth classes. So how do we structure that from a cost recovery standpoint to encourage that, and not maybe where we were before, which was just focus on upper level classes because we know they fill and we know we get the revenue from them. So when it comes to, you know, what the requirements would be for cost recovery, is to factor that in, of that beginner introduction family versus intermediate advanced upper level classes, and how we would factor that in. The other piece, as you got into some of the information in the report, was that any center like this would continue to require an operating subsidy. It depends on now who subsidizes it, how we look at subsidizing it. But I think one of the pieces that was in there is, you know, the center does not turn a profit. It generates revenue, has a high amount of expenses, and it's currently been, the cost has been covered from the Edina liquor store profits. What that's done is it's created a stability for its operating, but it has not then allowed the ability to reinvest from its capital improvements. So that's kind of that other piece, is that the next financial model really has to have an agreement and consensus that the capital improvement needs of the facility would be met. I think that's really key going forward, because otherwise we're going to keep repeating and repeating what we've done. So I think the other piece of that then too is that other piece is that I know through the conversation it's been, well, what about the other mediums? We really are taking a decentralized approach right now to that, as Laura's kind of giving you information about classes at the senior center, classes at some of our park buildings, classes at Centennial Lakes Park, classes even at the Art Center using just the main floor, is really then looking at, as we discuss the Braemar Park Master Plan, maybe outside of the referendum issue, is what does that mean down the road from more of that activity center focused facility within that realm? As you know, how long should those conversations wait before we start talking about community needs in a facility, and then how is art represented in that? So there's a lot of data in this report. Just to note, there's a lot of different financial and registration systems that have changed in the past. So Sarah did a fantastic job and put a lot of effort into trying to best match those up. Some of them are a little bit apples and oranges, but they're still fruit. So we do think those conclusions are valid. You know, we may not know exactly how many classes were offered, but we know in some of those years how many registrants were in those facility programs. So it was a little bit of kind of piecing that together and then moving forward. So I know those are kind of some of the recommendations that, you know, were really top of mind bringing forward to go to the next steps. You know, we are engaged as part of the process team with Nancy Blankenship. She's with HGA Architects, and she's going to help us take this now and look at what does this mean for square footage? What does this mean for ventilation? How do you get into buildings to really retrofit and pull this off? Because that's that next step, is not stopping. I think we said that early on, is can't let it gather dust, can't let it sit, let's keep moving, right? So we're looking forward to the check-in in, you know, roughly 4 weeks or so with the city council, deliver this and kind of highlight those recommendations, and really use it as a check-in to say, you know, this is what you charged us to do, we've completed it, now we want to go do X, Y, and Z. So I hope that's a good enough summary for where we're at. It doesn't do the report justice. It's a tremendous amount of information. I think it's a great asset, as Sarah spent a lot of time pulling together Sutton study, Grandview study, facility study, and kind of making sure they kind of all came through comprehensive. So wanted to thank the commissioners that were involved in the issue. They provided a lot of good feedback. They've read a lot of proofs on this. I think you should be proud of them for their effort on this. I don't know what they've done in the past. I wish Commissioner Suko was here this evening, as he's kind of been our grounding force as he's been through this a number of times. So maybe we'll talk him into coming for the council meeting as well. So, with that, I don't know, Sarah, Tracy, Laura, anything else, or else if there's any questions or comments from the initiative members or other commission members.
Perry, I have a question for you. I'm going back to your report, your letter that you sent. In point B, there is identify a temporary, not permanent pottery facility. Is there a reason we're just going to put all this money into a temporary facility rather than find a permanent home for pottery and put our money into a very valuable spot? I'm just concerned about why we're thinking this has to be a temporary location.
Thank you, Commissioner Amla. I think I've always said it's temporary until it isn't. And I think that's, you know, getting back to what the success of a pottery forward facility would be. As we discussed, you know, there's a tremendous amount of rebranding, rebuilding, remarketing of this, and really proving that it can continue to be successful. That was the council direction, to provide temporary until permanent. I think as our recommendation would be, is if we can find the right site, if we can find that right location that has these aspects within it, that might be permanent. You know, if we had to rent a facility and it was an enormous amount of, you know, a monthly payment or something like that, I think, you know, we'd question that and say, boy, you know, how long could we do that to prove that the model works before it requires that investment. But I think if we can find the right site, location, I don't see why it couldn't be its home. I think that's the trouble we have right now, is it's a pottery facility inside a house with all these other drawing, two-dimensional art that's going on. And I think because of that, those different infrastructure needs has led to maybe some of the issues that we're having from a building facility maintenance standpoint. So I would say if it's the right facility, it doesn't have to be temporary.
I think that would be great. I would fully support that.
And can you guys hear me? From my perspective, the council's initial question that was put to them last March was, as COVID wanes, what do we do next, kind of thing, and do you want to invest and fix the current building, or do you want to do a temporary kind of, and that's where it all started. I think one of the things from the report to take away is, unless you're moving toward a permanent spot, it's not worth all of the investment of building it out in a large way. If you're just going for a temporary, then you take an electric kiln here and there, and you do something small and you keep it that way until you're ready for a permanent spot. I think is where we've sort of ended up with the recommendations. Does that make sense?
I want to just chime in on a couple of things, if I could. One is that as we worked on this report and reviewed it, multiple times, I kept looking for and pushing to make sure that we were thinking about market demand and potential demand and whether that's there. And I find that the report does support that, and that, I think I've said this the last time, that as representatives of a commission, I think we should only get behind something that has the potential for success. And so this report to me demonstrates that there is the potential for success, that this could be very successful for Edina, that there is demand, that there would be interest, and that we could in fact expand interest. So that was a piece that personally I was committed to. I wanted to mention that I don't think it's reflected in this report, but we did get a lot of feedback and input from staff at the Edina Art Center, and particularly, I'm sorry, I've forgotten her name.
Jeanette Colby.
Right.
Should have her picture on the report.
Right. Right. And I really put a lot of stock in her knowledge and experience with pottery, both at the Edina Art Center and elsewhere. And I think it's important to note that we weren't just sort of hypothetically talking about this, that she was providing a lot of really hands-on verified information to us. I want to thank Sarah, and because Sarah obviously did a lot of research and put in a lot of time. You can just see how many facts and figures and details there are. And it is lucky for us that Sarah has such a strong background, not only in the arts, but also in pottery, that she was tasked by the City Council to do this. And so we're lucky for that. And Sarah, thank you for doing that. And I just also want to say that I think finally that I think we're really lucky that Perry has championed this. And so, Perry, your memo, your cover memo here really does encapsulate what has happened. I mean, that fourth paragraph where you describe the basic pattern, I'm like, yeah, that's what's gone on time after time. And it's just been like, wash, rinse, repeat. And so thank you for kind of getting under the surface into the next step on all of this. And I want to say that, Perry, representing Park and Rec, is coming in here and being a wonderful advocate for the arts and this program. So thank you for doing that, and hopefully getting us to the next step. And the City Council hopefully will see that as well. I'll just end with one question, which is what time is that March 22nd meeting at? Do you know?
Great question. It will be at 5:30. It's their work session. So I believe at this point it's their only topic on work session. So it starts at 5:30. Regular meeting, which this isn't on, starts at 7, which is the formal vote, next thing up kind of vote thing. So this is work session. So similar to how your joint sessions have gone in the past, or Commissioner Amlaw, you probably recall when you were on the flood reduction task force, just very social, hopefully around a table, talking about one topic.
It's a very nice conversation between people, so it's very helpful for everybody.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Susan, I'm going to add that Jeanette was a major voice in the field study. That was my oversight in not including her in that way, and that will be corrected.
Hi, Rebecca Sorensen. I just wanted to ask, this is terrific. It is pottery forward, and I am wondering if we could also just talk about if this is sort of, again, the idea of temporary to permanent potentially. What happens to the other art programs of the center? So we would kind of be pottery forward. Are we looking at sort of offering additional art classes at these various park campuses as we're sort of currently doing, or we could talk about sort of the vision for what happens with those other art programs?
I can actually turn that over to Laura and or Tracy if they want to cover that, but the expectation is yes, that continues and grows. I think there's a high demand for the complementary arts in addition to pottery in the community. So I'll leave that up to those two, and the programming aspect. It's been a long time since I've done programming, and nobody really likes my ideas on a lot of that stuff. So
They wouldn't all be housed together. Like,
I always tell my staff I have a lot of ideas, not many of them are good. So they have to filter through what I throw out there.
Right, so just kind of going off what Perry just said, we're going to be doing programming all over the city to try to get to all the different quadrants and all the different neighborhoods. So we're trying to figure out how to utilize different parks like Pamela, Weber, Countryside, those nicer park buildings that we've put money into making so nice. We need to program a little bit more. We're also looking at utilizing Fred Richards right now for the clubhouse for all of our summer camps. And until a decision is made about that building and that whole area, we're going to try to utilize that building a little bit more. The senior center has a dedicated classroom for art programming right now, so we're working to get more programs in there. We do currently have music programming. We're looking at doing improv classes this summer, getting a few more poetry classes going. So we're doing written and spoken word. And then we're also focusing on the two-dimensional, so the painting, watercolors, acrylics, drawing classes. We have a handful of fine art classes that are taught by some teachers that have been with the city for a long time. We're also looking at different one-off courses with things like Kid Create, Kids Art, different little smaller LLCs that can come in and just do programming for the city. And so we're just gonna throw a whole bunch of noodles at the walls and see what sticks.
And then for adult art classes, would that sort of also happen at these different campuses, or?
Yep. So we're trying a whole bunch of that stuff too. So right now we're utilizing the art center for a lot of that stuff on that first floor. We're going to be branching out. So it's just, we're trying to build that base. As Tracy likes to say, we're trying to build the base to bring more people into the arts in Edina and bring people back after COVID. And really try to figure out what it is that our constituents want and not just offer 700 programs where then we have to cancel 3/4 of them. So
I'll just put a plug in for some of the items that Laura's already created in the activities directory. You can find them starting on page 22, from K to youth to art to adult. A lot of times her limits are space. not just for arts, but Tracy would probably nod her head and say a lot of our other programmatic limitations are due to adequate space, having enough space, having space after work, having space in the summer, getting alternate locations lined up. So a lot of times the creativity is stunted by access to facilities.
Well, and we were talking with the other programmers about how to work around softball tournaments when we want to have a theater camp, because you can't do theater in the same place where we're having a softball tournament because it's too loud. So we're hoping to program all over the city, different types of work, and bring it to everybody.
Well, I was very pleased to see that we had 3 pages of art in the pamphlet that Perry was just showing. So it was great to see the variety that you were able to put together. So thank you. That was great.
And you're likely already thinking about this and doing this, but I think the messaging around this sort of decentralization of the art programming is something that we can't stress enough, that because people can take it in 2 ways, obviously, oh, well, you're not doing stuff at the art center, oh, that's bad. But if we stress that we're trying to make it more accessible and be in all, as you say, all quadrants of the city, that can resonate with people. And I think we can't stress that enough. So like I say, I know you're already thinking about that, but I would just think we want to really emphasize the fact that we're bringing it out to people, making it easy for kids, easy for adults, just bringing it out to you.
But just one question. So most of these classes would be seasonal then, is that correct? Because of these locations, these quadrants, if you will, across the city. Is that right? And because we would be phasing away from the art center first floor.
Yes, and situation. The main goal, I think, is to program year round at all of our different facilities. It's whether we get participation or not is what we're kind of trying to figure out right now. But the hope is that we will be running programs throughout the year in different areas.
Okay.
So the senior center, Braemar, the art center, those would easily be year round. Some of the other ones you mentioned, not as year round.
Yep, we won't be able to utilize the warming houses during skating season, per se. But we're gonna figure out how to use different areas in the city to bring it to everybody.
And then the idea of like a gallery of some kind for multimedia, is that still something that's being discussed, or would that, again, more sort of be incorporated into the pottery forward model with pottery only, or are you thinking there would be?
I think everything's on the table right now.
Okay.
I think the question was about having gallery space, things like that. And that would have to be a discussion about future space and allocations. Our charge was to look at pottery forward. If there's additional square footage in a facility, there could be a gift shop, there could be gallery space, there could be display space, but it really all depends on the amount of square footage that we could get within a facility to define that. Now, if we were to look at, some other type of activity center within the Braemar realm, as the council dictated, that could multi-purpose function. We've also talked about, if we did decide to have a gallery, we could do it at the senior center, we could do it at Centennial Lakes, depending on the time there. So, but not at this point, under this study of a pottery forward facility, having guaranteed gallery space. That was not part of this.
Does anyone else have questions?
But I'd like to again thank Sarah, thank Jeanette, Laura, Tracy, all the commissioners that have been involved, Susan, Laura, Kathy. It's been appreciative. Even early on in this process, getting Susan Tarnowski's input as well prior to her retirement. Helping her, her helping us gather a lot of these old studies that were only paper, to make sure we didn't miss one along the way that had occurred through this. So to help build a lot of this background to, as indicated, move this forward.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Okay, I think if nothing further, we'll move on to 6C, the annual elections. Anyone here interested in running for chair or vice chair? Otherwise, Russ Rubin and I are happy to take another term, but I want to open the floor if people are interested.
Yeah, Chair Sorensen, it's just a little bit different because you're virtual. I don't know if we did this last time virtually. If we're in person, it's hard to recall. But the first step is to open the floor for nominations for chair. Handle that aspect of it first. There needs to be a motion, a second for each nomination, and then a vote on each as well. So if you are ready, we could, as you indicated, open the floor for chair nominations.
Sure. Yeah, let's open the floor. Anyone interested in putting their name in the hat in the ring for chair? And just looking, everyone's really busy with everything you're doing.
I nominate Rebecca Sorensen to serve as chair.
I second that nomination.
Thanks for the vote of confidence. I appreciate that as I bumble along here. Appreciate all of you very much helping me do this. Thank you. Let's say, is that approved?
If there are any other nominations, then if Laura could do a roll call vote, and the nominee can vote in this instance. So
That makes sense.
We're ready for a vote. Commissioner Amla? Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Westland?
Aye.
Commissioner Fram?
Aye.
Commissioner Stemler?
Aye.
Commissioner Chandler?
Aye.
Chair Sorensen?
I don't have a vote though, right? Because it's me. Is that what Perry
You
just
do
said?
have a vote.
no, I said even the nominee can vote.
Oh, you did say, oh, okay, I didn't hear you. Oh, yes, I guess. All right, here we go again. One more year. Terrific. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. What about for Russ Rubin? Or honestly, let's open this up. Would anyone else, Russ has been out this for a while. He's happy to jump in again, but would anyone else want to nominate themselves for vice chair? Or nominate someone else? Otherwise, we can nominate Russ Rubin. Is it okay to nominate him? He agreed to being nominated for another
You
term.
just have to make that as I nominate Russ Rubin.
All right, I nominate Russ Rubin for vice chair. Can I get a motion?
I second that nomination.
Okay, thank you so much, Kathy. Can we call roll?
Commissioner Amla?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Westland?
Aye.
Commissioner Fram?
Aye.
Commissioner Stemler?
Aye.
Commissioner Chandler?
Aye.
Chair Sorensen?
Hi. Thank you very much. Terrific. So we have done our elections and we're good to go for the next year. Next, we're on to chair and member comments. Some of us noticed, and this is also the case for that March 22nd meeting, although it sounds like some of you can be there. The week of so March 24th, our next meeting is actually during Edina's spring break. So I'm wondering if it would help our commissioners if we delayed our meeting until the following Thursday, the 31st. Does that help? Since we will be back in person. Does anyone have any comments about that? Are people I think I was hearing that some people are away for the 24th.
I'll be away for both the 24th and the 31st. And is it correct we won't have an option of being at the meeting remotely, or could I call in to be at the meeting or anything? Is there any way I can be present at any of the meetings while I'm gone?
The first part is correct. There are no longer going to be virtual aspects of that. And then the second part would be no, there's no longer a remote participation option.
So could I call in or watch on like as a community person would, or that's no longer available either?
Only the city council regular meetings are televised once this goes back in. The work sessions are not. They're more informal.
Okay.
I also won't be around on the 24th. It's Susie. So.
Okay, and what about our student commissioners? Would it be better for you if we were on the 31st? Yeah, I think if everyone's okay, let's go ahead and bump this meeting to the 31st of March. And we will, obviously, Laura and others that can't make it, we'll touch base with you before and work on some of these initiatives together and report in for you and fill you in after. Obviously, we'll have the meeting minutes and everything for you to look at. But does everyone agree that that's a good idea to bump to the 31st because of Edina spring break?
That's fine. Are we convening at the Public Works Department or at City Hall?
That's what I understood, the Public Works again. Is that correct, Perry and Laura? Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to cover that in our upcoming meetings, but we would again move back to Edina Public Works so we can spread out a little bit more.
Okay, terrific. Great. So we'll plan for that. And then otherwise just explore Edina and the Chamber, Edina Chamber of Commerce are now heading up Fall into the Arts. And the director, Shelley Loberg, has sort of reached out and invited our commission to think about, they're looking for a role for our commission to just participate. If it makes sense with our work plan and how that might happen. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that festival is in new hands now with the Chamber and Explore Edina. And then
Chair, just to clarify on that, the Edina Crime Prevention Fund is still the owner and operator of that. The city is still a participant in that. The Chamber of Commerce is doing the logistical work for the Crime Prevention Fund, so that they are still
all those
stalwarts in the community that have been doing this for a long time. So.
Oh, okay, great. And that was just a little different than the way it was explained to me. So that's great to know. And then Explore Edina would take up the marketing aspect of the festival is the way that it was explained. So, and as we talked about, and it's in our packet from before, that the Edina Art Fair will be kicking off again, and that's being handled by the new 50th in France Business Association. So everything is sort of coming back, which is exciting. And the only question I had here too is that we have a number of public events for our 2022 work plan. And I wanted to know, is Jennifer Benneret the correct person in terms of who manages like the City of Edina's social media? Just, a lot of our initiatives will require some good PR marketing. Is she the correct person that we should contact, or do we talk to you about that and make a connection that way?
Yeah, you should go through Laura and I.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you. That's all I have. Does anyone else have anything here for chair member comments? Okay. All right, moving on to staff comments.
Chair, members of the commission, just wanted to draw attention that your upcoming meetings and events in your packet is no longer valid. So as you indicated now, with consensus that your March meeting will occur on the 31st of March. That meeting will again be at 4:30 p.m. at the Edina Public Works facility. As noted earlier, March 22nd is the council work session. And then in April, prior to your April meeting, we'll remind you at your March meeting, but Tuesday, April 19th, that's also a 5:30 start. That's your annual joint session with the Edina City Council. Oftentimes they like an update on the work plan. I know those have been virtual the last 2 years. That's a shared night with another commission. The other commission is the Parks and Recreation Commission that evening. I can't remember who went first last time. So either you're going to be first or second, depending on who had the coin toss last time. So wanted to make sure that we'll update that for your next packet. And then I did want to, even though he is not here this evening, thank Commissioner Steve Succo for his terms and years of service on the commission. He can watch, maybe he's watching on the airplane that he's stuck on, because he just emailed that he is stuck on that. He was very disappointed not to join you, but his work schedule got in the way. But I'm gonna read it to you, so you can think of his voice as he wrote this. But you know, notwithstanding his curmudgeonly and hopefully at times entertaining demeanor, he has been honored to serve on the commission. He joined to feel more a part of the community that we are raising our family in. Like all great experiences, I received so much more than I contributed. I want to thank all the wonderful people I worked with over the years. I encourage all the current members of the commission to continue to decide what they want from their time on the commission and pursue it with determination and patience. It is so amazing to see such talented people working to make Edina a better place. If I ever can be of assistance or provide any background, never hesitate to reach out to me. My favorite memory has been walking in several 4th of July parades. If you get the chance, do it and throw some candy his way. So, wanted to thank him for his multiple years and his multiple initiatives, his research and his input. So I wanted to thank him as well. And I'll try, maybe because of his experience, we'll see if he can join us in March with the City Council. Wanted to add that as well. And I'm not sure if any other staff has any updates.
I have one request from other city staff. You should have received that communication from Perry about Juneteenth. Does anyone have any interest in sitting on the Juneteenth committee to discuss that event, which should be taking place over at Centennial Lakes Park on June 19th, which is a Sunday. It is Father's Day. If you are interested, please reach out. And then also, Perry alluded to our activities directory. It is in your hands. And if you have any questions about that, let us know.
Great. Thank you so much. Anything else? And otherwise, that's a lot of great updates, and we're grateful to Steve, and sorry he's stuck on a plane and we can't tell him that we're all stuck on this Zoom and we can't tell him in person how wonderful he is and how much he's made a difference on this commission in his service to the arts and to the city of Edina. So thank you, Perry, for acknowledging him. And I just saw the email too, so poor guy, but that was a great note. So with that, it is now 6:03. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn our meeting. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay, thank you so much, Susan Chandler. In a second?
Second.
Okay, terrific. Laura Westland. Laura, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Amlaw?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Westland?
Aye.
Commissioner Fram?
Aye.
Commissioner Stemler?
Aye.
Commissioner Chandler?
Aye.
Chair Sorensen?
Aye. Thank you all so much. We'll be back in person next month. And correct me, will we see our new commissioner at the March meeting? Or is that when they officially join us? Apparently there were 100 applicants to join our commission or commissions throughout the city. So, and they've decided on someone. So I think we'll meet that person at the next meeting. Is that correct?
That would be the goal. The City Council has yet to approve their appointments. I believe that'll happen at the next regular meeting, and then they'll be appointed, and we'll have to connect with them to ensure that they know that the meeting date has changed and that they can factor that into their calendar. But
Okay.
yes, hopeful to have a new commissioner in March.
Terrific. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the snow. Thank you.